Welcome to Multiple Offers, a real estate show with competing perspectives. Today we are talking about negotiating.
Put that coffee down.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
How'd you get the gig? Oh, they were hiring. It was only a 2-week course.
I will sell this house today.
What are you, some kind of real estate agent?
Oh, he's a realtor. There is a difference somehow.
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
Guys, it is episode 19.
Wow.
Episode 9. What happened to episode 17?
We're legal drinking age.
Wait, 19?
Who's that voice?
Oh,
Have you guys been recording episodes without me?
is this Jeremy?
Oh, I'm back.
We let you back on.
Thank God. My probationary period is over.
We almost had a coup. I think Courtney really liked doing the episode.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Where have you been, man? What's going on?
I've been, where was I?
First one you missed was for the course.
First one was one of our re-educating, continuing education realtor courses that we take for relicensing. My license is up in this December for renewal. So I was taking the legal update course, which is different and harder and more involved. So all of you realtors that are listening, look forward to it. And it could be different too next year. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's where I was. And then I was just away on a little holiday for the past week, which is nice. So not a lot of real estating.
Yeah.
For me. Matt did some of my real estating for me, my bidding.
Did a little business, and now it's today we're recording. It's the Wednesday after the first day back at everything.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to know what's going on in the market.
Yeah, we're 2 days in and everybody wants like a full update, right?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of new listings.
Yeah, we hit 39 on the New West hot sheet yesterday.
Oh, I didn't have a look yet.
When I checked it, it was 30, I think. When I
Yeah,
left
so
the
for
office.
people who don't have context, I mean, a high number usually is 20, 25.
Now, maybe even just explain what the hot sheet is.
Yeah, hot sheet is what we see in our Realtor MLS system, and you can set it to whatever parameters you want regionally. But for Jeremy and I, mine just says New West.
Yeah.
You can create a couple of different ones, and it'll tell you what's a new listing, what posted as sold that day, price changes that day. So it's a good way to get a snapshot.
So
of
there were
what's going on.
39 new listings.
Yeah, for sales.
Yeah, helpful on a day-to-day, kind of see what's coming up and what's selling through, rather than waiting a month for a stats report to come out or waiting for a newspaper article.
We did talk about this though, right? As we're trying to predict September, we said that we get like a big dump of listings the first week of
this
September.
isn't a surprise.
This is normal.
And anybody who in the last 2 weeks, I think, would have been listed normally is probably waiting.
For them, yeah, the majority of them are a backlog. Anybody who's got
Yeah.
a realtor says, well, hey, if you can wait, like we wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Anything within that 2 week window, they say we wait until September.
Yeah, because it's pretty quiet the last couple. I mean, people have other stuff on their mind.
Yeah, they're either getting in their last bit of holidays, which I notice a ton of people are on vacation. And for those who aren't, they're thinking about getting back into their work brain if they don't have kids. And if they have kids, I mean, we know what they're thinking about there.
Kid stuff.
The vacation known as back to school.
Yeah. And, so I got a bit of an update from just a real estate colleague yesterday. I was talking about what's going on in North Delta. And it was interesting to me to hear his perspective. He's a real North Delta kind of specialist, and we're talking about detached houses. And his observation, because I said, I've been noticing like a lot of accepted offers. A lot of this product seems to have been getting sort of snatched up over the month of August.
In North Delta specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the detached houses. And he's like, yeah, what I'm noticing, one thing for sure is the builders aren't really buying, which has taken away part of the market. And it's been really good for all of the people who are invested in the community, in the starter homes.
Okay.
They're all saying, I want to stay in my community. I want to stay in my block, whatever it is. And they're offering on the house down the street or around the corner and then putting their starter house up for sale, subject to sale. And there's a lot of sort of internal mobility in the community.
Yeah.
Is something that he's noticing. So there's an opportunity there for people who, like their community to get that done. And what they're looking for now is that entry-level buyer to come in or buy their entry-level house, right? Maybe somebody coming out of a condo or a townhouse. So a lot of property ladder going on just within that little community.
Which is a big change because all last year, most people who were buying and selling, if they were moving up, were getting pushed out further, no matter what community they were in.
Yeah.
That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, so I loved hearing that from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's opened up a little bit for them. That's good.
Yeah, I feel like it's given people the control, the autonomy,
right,
that makes them feel rewarded for moving up the property ladder. You know, you set roots in a community, and now you don't have to leave.
Imagine that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so that is encouraging. What about you, Jeff?
I'm having a tough day.
Oh.
Yeah, my dad called me this morning. My godfather passed away.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and he, his name's Jerry Demers. And when I was a kid, my dad, him, and Keith Setter were all realtors really just starting their careers, and kind of very similar to the relationship the three of us have of really building and bouncing ideas off. Like the three of them, I had so much fun with when I was a kid, watching them kind of build something. So, you know, and I mean, he'd been sick for a very long time, but it's, I don't know, I'm a little introspective today and a little really appreciative of what I've got. It actually made me really think about how good the relationships, not just the three of us, but a lot of our peer group at the office are, because I know a lot of real estate agencies, I'm stupid, I'm getting choked up, but a lot of real estate agencies
it's every man for themselves.
Yeah, and that was something I really saw as a kid with Dad and his friends, and I'm just really thankful that I've got that at our office. I really appreciate it. So,
well, it's good to hear, and I think it's something that we do appreciate and helps keep us all on track, right? Like we know this business can be tough, and it can be
be lonely.
Yeah, it can. You really feel like you're on your own sometimes. It'd be a bit of a mental grind. So having somebody to lean on and help build you up.
If you're working at home, like a lot of brokerages are set up these days where like they want to keep fees low because it's so expensive. So you end up having a brokerage that you don't go into necessarily, and you're at home.
Totally. Keller Williams in the States just announced they're going to be opening up virtual brokerages. So they're going to have brokerages that there isn't even an office space.
Wow.
Which for some people may work amazing, but for me, I get so much from being.
If you're really self-motivated and don't need to always be around people, and you can kind of just do your thing at your place or whatever, or Starbucks or wherever you want to work, that could save you some money. I guess is the idea. That must be the idea behind it, is to save some money, right? Less overhead for the brokerage, less monthly.
Well, if people are just arguing that they don't need the physical facility, you can create one hub that's, you know, in Eastern Canada, and you can support, or Eastern United States, and support agents across the country.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if saving money is the thing, which is kind of interesting because we're about to talk about saving money as our main topic. Why don't
was that what we're supposed to do?
or keeping more in your pocket?
Yeah. Let's get into the main topic.
I just want everybody to know that we're not doing the news on purpose.
Oh, okay. Okay.
For all of the listeners who are looking forward to Matt giving the news, no news today. We think we got a lot to tell you about negotiating.
I think I can do the news in one sentence today. We don't need a bumper for it.
Oh, we're not. All right. Do the news.
Interest rates held. We thought interest rates were going up. Bank of Canada was supposed to announce raised up, and they held because of the horrible NAFTA negotiations.
Every time they get some optimism to think the economy is improving and they can bump up rates, like, oh no.
Yeah.
Pipeline. Oh no. NAFTA.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay. So on to the next thing. Okay. Well, that is a good lead into a future guest we do want to have back is Stephanie Barrett. We've mentioned that before.
Yes.
So we're gonna look to line her up. But let's talk about negotiating, and then we'll let our listeners know what else we have in store for them for the next several episodes.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
You decide your own level of involvement.
Well, I guess this is a case where we'll have to agree to disagree.
I don't agree to that.
Neither do I.
Wrong.
National debt.
Wrong.
You're an advocate.
Wrong. With that money, lost one.
Very nice words, but happens to be wrong.
You're listening to Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
So the market has slowed down, which opens up a really interesting thing that we thought that we would talk today is people are actually getting to negotiate again.
It's amazing.
Are you guys excited? Have you been negotiating deals?
Trying to remember how.
Yeah.
Trying to get the other agents to remember how.
Well, yeah, and I think we've talked about that
we have.
In past episodes of sellers and buyers not being in the same place. But I think now more than it has been any time in the past 3 years, negotiating is a really important part of getting a deal together.
Big time. We're settling into it, and we're looking at what are our appropriate strategies, what are appropriate expectations
so many things
from buyers and sellers.
Yeah. So many things going on, so many different approaches. Usually the same common goal of I want to sell my house and this person wants to purchase this house. But we see everything, right?
Yeah. So what are you guys getting back to? What are some of your core negotiating tactics?
Well, the thing that I always have to start with is that both parties involved have to circle back to the main goal, which is keeping the deal together.
Yeah.
Right? So as we're massaging this back and forth and buyers and sellers are learning the limits, they're measuring the risk as to how far they can go without killing the deal. Buyer doesn't want to lose a property they found and insult the seller and sort of frustrate all of that. And the seller doesn't want to push away the buyer because it might be the first offer they've seen in months. Right. So you're trying to maximize your outcome without killing it. And that's, to me, where it all starts, right? Is I think both parties see opportunity to try to maximize the outcome, and nobody quite knows where the limit is. So we're all pushing the limit.
And calculating that risk is one of the bigger things to know, like, what kind of market are we in? Yeah. Is this like the best one you've seen? You've been looking for 6 months to a year, and we know that this is a rare property, or no, that's kind of a dime a dozen or so. And, walking away from this, how risk averse are you? Right. And, we need to have that conversation with the clients too, of like, okay, we can slow play this. We can hardball, whatever you want to do. Obviously, this is your decision. We'll give advice on how this has worked out in the past. Worst case scenario, best case scenario. But knowing if it is the one that fits 8 of the boxes out of 10 versus all the other ones that have been 6s or 7s, it might not be the one that you want to play it that way.
Yeah, identifying motivation, because if I always tell clients, if you fall in love with something, you're kind of handcuffing me in the negotiation. Like if you're actually willing to walk away, we can negotiate a lot harder.
You are much stronger than negotiation.
Yeah. Than if you're like, no, this is the one. Well, then we want to still figure out, like, kind of what Matt's saying. What's the lowest price we can start at that doesn't sabotage the deal?
Yeah, and that's that fine line, right? And price is the most obvious example, but it's not the only thing in the negotiations right now, right? So maybe we can work through some of these in a cohesive way for our listeners, so we don't get, because I know we can probably talk sort of circles around this, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to scare them off. But it might not actually be price. It might be dates. You might stick your heels in and say, well, as a buyer, the only time that I can come in that fits my whole plan here is, today is the beginning of September, and you say end of October, and then the seller says that is an absolute no-go for me. So somebody has to give because of maybe holiday plans or something that's significantly impactful financially, and you have to find a way to match those up, where in the strong market, everybody's just kind of like, well, I know I'm going to sell my place. I know I'm getting lots of money.
Well, in a strong market, the seller's dictating all the terms other than price. Like, they're sending you usually a page of, these are the dates. These are the things that we want.
And when you get more than 4 offers, everybody says, well, if I want to be in the conversation, I have to accommodate the seller's dates.
Yeah.
And now that stuff's going differently. So, and I guess what I'm getting to that with that fine line, and you were saying like not starting too low in the price and upsetting them, is you don't want to create an adversary.
Yes.
Under this theme, if we're talking to our listeners about negotiating, if you're buyer or seller, you don't want to create that adversarial relationship where now everything is tit for tat. You did that to me, now I'm pushing back harder.
Lawyer television has created a very different picture of what real negotiating looks like. Actually, that's not fair. Negotiating real estate, I think. Because I think I had a client who was a lawyer, or who is a lawyer, and he couldn't understand, like, he wanted to just hammer on people, and it wasn't working. And one thing we had to have a conversation about was, in his job, he's dealing with corporations, and it's just numbers.
Yeah.
Emotion, this is the home where they raised their kid. This is the place where their child took their first steps, where they did all of these things, where they saved up all their money. There's a lot more than just the numbers going on here.
Well, the lawyer playbook to negotiating is entirely different from real estate. And they all do it the same way, right? They ask for 100 things expecting to come out with 25 of them.
Always to an extreme.
Although I do think that is worthwhile in real estate. I think it's good to have some things that you can give up.
Well, ask for a little more, but lawyers go the worst case scenario is you'll have 10 years in jail and this and that, when they know full well that the end result is like a 1-year plea bargain. If we're talking criminal, and if we're just talking a settlement, it's like, well, I mean, I can justify $5 million in damages here, but really they know that 100,000 is what they're coming out with. They ask for the moon, but that's the playbook,
right?
Because it's business. And sometimes you'll get, an investor on one side or the other side, whatever it may be, but very, very rarely in my experience, and maybe you guys can speak to yours, do you get two people on the side, each side of the table, who can agree that it's just business?
No. It's always almost always personal, and regardless of whether they raised a family there, you have pride of ownership. I've lived here. My place is always better than the other ones, and you can it's so easy to offend somebody, and starting off on that wrong foot can sour everything moving forward.
And even if it is both sides of the party, it's just business. Like, it's a tenanted property where the person is a landlord and they are selling it to somebody who's going to take over the tenancy. Most of the time, those people aren't business people. They're not people who are doing deals like a lawyer every day.
Yeah, they still can't get emotionally disconnected from it. Yeah. There's some ego involved or something where they see an offer and they go, well, this is just an insult to me.
Yes.
Why do they think they can steal it from me at this price? Now it's time to fight back.
Yeah, totally.
And I've had clients who are sophisticated business people and they want to approach it like a business transaction, purchasing a family home.
Yeah.
And it's really hard sometimes to articulate to those people. The person on the other side doesn't see this as just business.
Yeah.
Your offer 20% below asking price is killing us.
Yeah. Especially when it's not justified. That's fine. And maybe their price is 20% off. But there has to be something tangible to say that, no, this is where I'm going is right. But that approach, usually that comes from like asking for the moon. We'll kind of meet in the middle. I'll make the middle more on my side by going lower. It's all relative, right?
Yeah. So can we talk about sort of price and pricing strategies? Can we move on? Get into that?
Yeah,
kind of focus on that for a few minutes now for the listeners?
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about an extreme example might be 20% below asking price. Is that extreme?
Yes.
Okay. So what is within the realm of not too extreme, but really riding that line?
In a balanced market to buyer's market, what do we see? It's been so long now. 5%?
I think, the first question is the home properly priced, right? Because if the price is totally off, then who cares what the percentage is? You have to write a fair offer. But if the home is priced where it should be,
let's take what is a common example right now in the marketplace is a listing that's been on 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
And the asking price isn't out to lunch.
Yeah.
But it's clearly not that tempting because it's been 30 to 60 days.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything over 5%, you're really getting into dicey territory. And you probably are at 5% too. Like a couple percent on hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's a lot of money.
See, I would disagree right now in this market.
Yeah.
I would say, so if we take two examples, a condo that's $600,000 or a house that's on the low end like $1 million.
Yeah.
And it's been on the market for 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
I'm okay writing an offer that's 10% below asking. So on a $600,000 condo, I don't mind shaving off $60,000 and writing $540,000.
Yeah, to me that's a bit on the low side.
And on $1 million,
is the $600,000 property?
Would you like me to confirm
is it?
$1 million?
Siri likes your.
And that's why we're on airplane mode.
I am on airplane mode. I don't know what.
There's a power button on the side there. I feel like that's like strike 5 for Geoff.
Stop trying to silence Siri. Okay.
Maybe on the 10%, I'm more of like a 60 to 90 day or beyond.
Okay. But is the $600,000 property $50,000 overpriced? Because I think that kind of plays a little bit into it too.
If it was worth $600,000, it would have sold. Is what I'm saying. It's been 60 days.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing a lot of. I'm not seeing a ton of $600,000 properties that are selling $60,000 under, but starting at that number might not be the worst idea.
That's what I'm getting at.
I'm seeing a lot of $25,000 to $40,000 negotiated off at that price point as the final number.
Yep. So if we're asking 600, we start at 540, maybe you finish at 570 or 575.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Now, historically, I would never have started that low.
No.
But I feel like there's some opportunity right now that if you start there, you might actually get that one for 550 or 555. Yeah. You might.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to try. And I don't think you're insulting anyone or risking losing the deal.
I don't disagree with that. I think one thing is, too, it's all in how you frame it. I think the number one thing that I'm enjoying about negotiating again is I always tell clients that people negotiate much harder with pieces of paper than they do real people. And I always want to tell a story with my offer. I want to turn that offer not just to about the number, but I want to talk to them like what you said. So they're asking 600 and maybe we write 540. If I just send an offer that just says 540,
you're getting 595 back.
That's offensive. If, on the other hand, I call the agent up, I try to get in person, because negotiations are so much better if you can actually sit down with people, but probably I won't. But at least I talk to them on the phone, and we talk about, okay, well, my people love the home, but they are worried about the market, just like I'm sure your people are worried about the market. They don't want to pay too much. Here are some homes they saw that they seem are really similar. This is why they're thinking this number. Like if you can turn it into how I like to tell the story of how we got to our number. And I find a lot of times in negotiating, agents just send in a contract and there's nothing.
Yeah, and when it's just arbitrary, it's easy to punch back.
Yeah. And on that number too, I don't know if you guys believe in this. I might be crazy. I also like to pick weird numbers. I don't like to come in 40 exactly.
Like a round number.
Yeah, because if you're coming in with nice round numbers, it feels like the game. Whereas if you're coming in with kind of a strange number, and I don't mean like to the cents, it feels like maybe you've crunched it out a bit more. And
I wouldn't look at it that way at all.
Oh, I find, and this is maybe more on the counter offer. If you counter on a 5 or a 0, you're going to get a counter back way more often than if you counter a little bit like a 7 or like
that's maybe a bit different, but initially.
Yeah, what I'm saying
matters as much.
I don't think it matters as much on initial offer, but once you're kind of getting into it, and I also like to take time. Like even if my client immediately knows what they want to do, I don't want to communicate that right away, because then again we're just playing the game.
What do you do for it?
I don't want to get into it's your turn now.
Yeah. Say all situation, kind of a balanced market. You're writing an offer with people, and it's 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And you wrote a fairly normal offer.
Mm-hmm.
What's your open time on something like that? How long are you leaving? I guess for people leaving this offer expires at midnight on same day or tomorrow, or do you just adjust the time on the counters?
Again, I think story really matters. Unless I have a really legitimate reason to say, we have a time limit for a reason. I always leave at least a day. I want to give people, because they can always cross it out. Like the time limit on counters, unless we actually have a time limit.
Like we're another property's taking offers.
Yeah,
tomorrow at 3.
That's a perfect example.
We like this one better, though.
We like yours better,
yeah.
But if you don't buy it, we have to write on another one tomorrow. Then I'll put a time limit on. But otherwise, I always give 24-hour notice. Yeah. Or 24 hours is usually what
and
I
as
do.
we learned in Storytime last episode, you can revoke your counteroffer.
Yeah.
As Geoff attempted to do.
As I attempted to do. So close.
Ooh, if you want to know how that one ends, go back to episode 18.
Yeah. And you get that sort of strong arm technique from, say, some agents too, where they're like, there's maybe no other property like this one, or there's we know New West very well.
Yeah.
There's no one taking offers tomorrow on this type of property. Well, so that excuse, you're like,
and it never works, right? Like when you're like, we've only got 2 hours to accept this offer, take it or leave it. Yeah. The immediate reaction of the seller is always, they're always mad about it.
Well, how serious are you? You're giving this thing a timeline.
Yeah, don't push people into a corner, right? It goes back to what we talked about earlier, like creating an adversary.
Yeah.
Right? It's typically not very effective.
Sometimes when I get an offer that is that quick and I'm able to present it in time, I don't even bring up to the seller that they only left us a couple hours to get back because I'm like, look, this is actually a good offer. It's going to get okay. But if I bring this up, they're going to be pissed.
Yeah, so you're actually withholding information just to maintain that positive mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
we are there to not necessarily not withhold things, but you do sort of frame things. The fact that there's a third party is so that these emotions aren't getting out of hand, because two buyer and seller just going at it, a lot less deals would get done if that were the case.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, emotions can wreck a deal really fast.
Yeah, so if we're speaking to that, like you said, like psychologically, a time frame, or you're talking about price and sort of making up not exactly round numbers.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on certain dollar figures, sort of clip levels I talk about? So if we're taking a $1 million asking price and you think that fair market value, you kind of want to land around $925.
Yeah.
This is where you think you want to land. Do you write like $899 or less? Do you let it start with an 8? You know what I mean? Where we start getting into that psychological, like, well, this seller is asking $1 million. Do we want to pull it into the 8s, even if it's $895? Or do we start with 900 or 901 to keep it in that 900 zone for psychological satisfaction?
I like to do reverse Walmart pricing. I think
911.
Yeah, I
so it
an
looks
$899 offer is so. Okay, let me start again.
Unless you need that lucky 8.
When we price a home at $1 million, chances are you actually priced it at $999. And you did that to look smaller. The seller psychologically wants to look smaller to the buyer. Mm-hmm. The reverse of that is the buyer wants their offer to look better.
Right.
So a lot of times you get counters where buyers want to counter at $899, $999, and my advice is always no, like you're thinking about this wrong. $900. Like you want to look bigger.
Yeah, buyer's perspective is to create a sense of inflation, where our experience as consumers typically is a behavior to try to create a smaller.
Well, and the buyer it makes sense why the buyer goes there. You're totally right, because they look at these sticker prices and they're like, well, this is how homes are.
This is how these things work.
Are priced, but it's worked to psychologically affect you, and you want to affect the seller in the reverse. You want your offer to look better than it is.
Yeah, so even though you're trying to achieve $925, which is not far off from $900, you still start at a $901, or for Jeremy's lucky number, $900,800.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Yeah, you want to... Psychology really matters. And those benchmarks, for sure. What that very first number that people see...
Yeah,
totally matters.
So the flip side then, with this scenario,
yeah,
you think that it's worth more like 900 to 910.
Yeah,
is kind of where you think you should land for fair market value. Then what do you offer?
I think if it's worth 900, you gotta start in the 8s. You just have to.
You have to,
because one thing, and I think we will all agree on this. You cannot, with your first offer, unless you're in a multiple offers and they're just going to pick one, start with the number you actually want to pay. The seller is always going to want more than your initial offer.
Everybody has to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing is, here's my offer and that's it.
Yeah.
So
I feel like when you started in real estate, like way back in the day, I remember you being a big proponent of not moving as much. Has that changed over the years?
I don't feel like my opinions have changed a whole lot. It's just that because the dollar figures are bigger, I'm more comfortable with larger dollar amounts, right? But percentages are still small. But I guess philosophically, if we're going back to this, and maybe I'm not answering your question right, but I mean, I know for my asking price, when the market wasn't nearly as strong, it was always really important to me to just be really spot on with the asking price. So I didn't have to give up much because I always had really firm ground to stand on when people were negotiating.
I think, and maybe my memory is wrong, I think I feel like I remember us having conversations when you first started, when you were representing buyers, where you would come in very close to what they wanted to pay.
Yeah.
And I guess I was just wondering if those tactics have changed.
Oh, yeah, and that does depend on how I think the seller is going to behave. But at that time, that was definitely psychological to keep the seller involved. And start close to where we wanted to finish.
Yeah.
Small move, and then just say, hey, this is it, and we're sincere.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like upsetting the apple cart. I don't like creating an enemy. And people were then, a number of years ago, far more emotional, in my opinion, about offers that started a little low. Like, they would get way more adversarial and way more difficult.
And that's when houses were like 700.
Yeah, or a condo was 350,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, you know your margins were a lot smaller there, right? And the agents seemed to take things more personally. Everybody was a little more easier to rile up. So now that I feel that they can handle a little bit better, I'll take a little more risk.
Well, and that's a really good point too. Is that somebody could listen to this a year from now, and it might be like part of being good at negotiating in real estate is you have to have your pulse of the market. Like it matters what's happening right now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That is a big reason why people need to hire us, right? Like, sorry, that not to sound really terrible, like self-serving,
pitch, yeah.
but that is part of it, is that we were very aware of the change now versus last year. And because you sold a house 2 years ago and you got really good advice from your realtor and really understood the process then, that has evolved.
Yeah, and we saw the comparable rather than just looking at it on a piece of paper. We were in that property. That can tell you what was different about it. That even when we're negotiating, say on a house, that the listing agents from Vancouver or North Van, this is their one deal in New West, and they've got things comparables. And you're like, you never saw those houses, or huge issues with that, or you realize that's a busy street or a major thoroughfare. Things to really set those apart that we need in our toolbox, in our arsenal, when we're going up with a lower offer on those houses.
I have comps as a talking point, since we're talking about that, comps being comparables.
Yeah.
And my key piece of advice for buyers or sellers is that it really distracts from the conversation, is really what I think.
Yeah.
I think as soon as you start, my experience with any agent is when you start saying, well, I was looking at this particular property as a comparison, and this is where I think it's different, and that's how it justifies our price. They want to fire back and tell you why you're wrong about that particular property. And you now invest 30% of your conversation debating this property, when really that isn't it. It's that your buyer or your seller has a specific opinion on where they think they want the number to be, and it actually isn't so much about that one comp, but they've just kind of decided this is where I want to land.
No, this isn't something that and we don't do this anymore, and I'm sure we'll get back to it. Like us, the good agents will be doing this, but you're not sitting at the dinner table presenting your buyer's offer to an agent and the family giving comparables. We've seen that before, where you're sitting there doing like a property evaluation on it. You're selling your offer and telling the story at that point. But talking to the other agent on the phone afterwards, you might get into that a little bit. But you don't want to get into a peeing match with them.
I think as soon as it degrades into two agents firing their comparables that they're using,
they're hijacking on
you're
status.
Like, oh, okay, this is all going wrong. I do think there is value, like I said, in telling the story.
I use comps.
Yeah.
I want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Just don't let it take over the conversation.
Yeah, like I've had negotiations where all of a sudden agents are just emailing me comps. And I'm like, well, okay, where as opposed to... we like this one, but the one floor down dropped their price $50,000, and we have to take that into account with our offer.
Usually when you're getting that, though, they're coming from like that. Your comp that you're giving me is a leaky condo. It always sells 20% less. Like, don't show me that.
Yeah,
please.
Right.
Like, get out of here.
I had an agent.
Those ones that kill me.
I had an agent one time send me a bunch of comps on her counter offer. And all the comps were 20 years younger than the unit she had. And I'm like, okay, but your home was built in the 50s, and these are all 70s condos. They're not comparable.
I think another thing, too, we haven't really gotten to is like knowing your opponent, too, who you're up against. Culturally, people negotiate differently. And some they know. They're not dumb. They know that what they're showing you isn't, but they're hoping you don't know. Or they're hoping...
Yeah, knowing your audience,
you're like,
right?
No, that's not real leather. It's leather. Like, no, it's not. But they're just hoping it'll get past some people, right?
Yeah, and it's important to be it's important to read. Like, there are some agents where you're like, okay, if we just counter a fair number at this point, they'll take it. Versus, oh, these guys want to play the game. Like, we need to keep batting the ball back and over the net a few times before we get to our number. Like,
which Matt's going to write not right close to where they want to end up on something like that.
Yeah,
Now we need to dial that back a bit and it's going to take several days.
Well, and without naming any names, it's really important to know there are agents out there who work really well for their clients, and there are agents out there who just want to close a deal. And
right.
I negotiate very differently when I know that the agent on the other side of the table just wants to close a deal.
Yeah, you can give them a pretty terrible looking number and tell them that's the end of the road, and they're like, "Let me close this for you, Jeff."
Well, and a lot of those people will tell you information you wouldn't have got otherwise. Like, well, I'm not going to do this, but I bet you we can get them to there. And you're like, you should not be telling me this. But that number you just told me is way better than we were expecting. Let me call my client.
I don't know, man. Let me see if I can talk him into it. Never make anything seem too easy. Never make anything seem too hard.
Yeah.
Right? I think is sort of a good thing there. Knowing your audience, so you know the agent, you know your client and how to communicate with them, right? Some clients want you to take a firmer approach versus others. And as a listener, if you're a consumer, right, communicate that to your agent and hear their advice though too, right?
Yeah, they're on the same team as you. When we've seen that before, some people where they're almost negotiating with you and you're like, it's not helpful because I'm going to be handling this certain ways. Like there's different tax, there's little subtleties that are going on here.
Yeah, if you've done your job right and hired an agent who has your best interests at heart, you guys should be a team.
Yeah. It's scary when your client is withholding information from you because they worry that you are the agent who's going to just offer that up to the other side. I can understand their skepticism because Jeff just said it could happen. So we need to create some trust there where you are 100% invested in each other. You can say, my best case scenario might be this. Sometimes I'll say to my client, I say, don't tell me what the maximum is you want to pay. Let's just work at this. Let me see the best I can do for you. Right? Because especially if just by circumstance we happen to land at the number that they said was the most they were willing to pay and it was really easy to get there, they might think that I just served it up on a platter to the other side.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I say that often to people too. I tell people all the time, like, I don't want to know your bottom line. I'm going to do the best I can for you, and then you can decide whether you want to take it or not. Because I find too... And this works with other agents. It works
told me
with
this
everybody.
Before. Good point.
As soon as they say it, now there's a bit of pride involved, and they've done it, and maybe there are things that are more important to them. Like all of a sudden they were given their dates, and they were given all sorts of different things that actually matter a little bit more than what they declared was their bottom line. But now I've said it.
I said it, and now I can't go there, which is also very funny too when we're talking big numbers.
Yes.
Right? If we're talking $1,050,000 and you just decided arbitrarily, you said my maximum is $1,050,000. I'm searching up to 1.2 to look at what's out there.
Yeah.
I'm writing offers at about $1 million, but my maximum is $1,050,000. Is it really $1,050,000? Because if you went to $1,053,000, does that change your life?
Well, and just like those weird numbers I talked about, your number will always be a round number that you picked. It'll be $1,050,000. It won't be $1,053,000. It won't be $1,051,000.
And all you'll see is that 3,000 or 5,000.
Yeah.
And for offers, well, maybe $1 million, but it's a big chunk of change, right?
Yeah.
It's month income. It's whatever your situation is. You can always think that I've got other places to spend that $3,000, that $5,000 that I gave, which comes back to the winning and feeling like everybody got something.
Yeah.
Good point. You want everybody to come out feeling like a winner.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point too. And I think we may have touched on this before. If you really play a zero-sum game and the as a seller or a buyer, but let's use a seller as an example, and the buyer is feeling really sore, they are way more likely to collapse the deal if anything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And they're way more likely to come back to you over stupid stuff at the inspection. And vice versa, the seller's way more likely when you need to get into measurements to be like, nah.
No, not letting you in.
Sorry.
I mean, you're hard in the negotiation. You're going to get some payback somewhere along the way, right? And definitely the buyer's looking for something to punch back with after you get the offer accepted because now they've got their conditions.
Yes.
Right? So they're, well, okay, let me see what I can hit you back with here. And when the inspection is now, we talked about this in the inspection episode, is they're not just looking for how does this impact me living in this home? How does this impact my investment? It's what can I bring back to the seller?
Yeah,
and that's not what you want.
And that's where that power shifts a bit in the buyer subject period.
Yeah,
if they feel it was a bit sour, they felt like they gave too much or compromised.
Yeah. So with today's market, then, and people are putting in their conditions, it's common to have conditions in offers now if people are negotiating. I think that's important to set the groundwork for expectations. Sellers shouldn't think that offers should be unconditional.
No, I haven't dealt with an unconditional offer in months.
That would be very, very rare, but I would say it's still in the...
It's possible, but it shouldn't be an expectation.
Definitely not. And then what I've been finding very frustrating is the expectation for the time provided to remove conditions. I've been finding that the seller's expectations is a very short time frame, maybe 5 or 6 calendar days.
Yeah.
When historically it used to be very common for detached was about 10 days and a condo was 10 to 14, depending on kind of how you had things lined up and holiday weekends and where things were
ordering
going.
strata documents.
Being provided. Yeah, it used to be that you'd wait to get an offer and then order the documents. I mean, now everything is ready, but it still means you need time. Like you want sufficient time to do your finance approval because that's free.
Yeah.
Before you start investing in inspection, we're investing in an appraisal at the property. So you want some time to do that. But I'm finding, and maybe it's just me, that sellers' expectations are, get this done in 5 or 6 days because I feel like maybe someone else is working out there who's ready to write an offer and I don't want to miss that chance.
Your offer looks good, but I'm just seeing these subjects. You have a week for subjects. Like, 5 business days. Yeah, we're going to need to change that. But why? The banks ideally they want 5 days.
That's a really good point, too, is I think there are a lot of people who negotiate, and they're negotiating points of the contract that don't really matter just to negotiate. And whether that's the agent trying to look like they're doing more for their client or a seller or a buyer who just wants to negotiate, pick the things that really matter. Like you're coming back on price and you're coming back on dates and you're doing all these things. Do you really need to shorten the subjects up by a day? Is that really something you want to... Is that the cross you want to die on?
Well, and that's a conversation I've had a few times. I'll get an offer where subject removal is on a Tuesday. Yeah. And then the seller says to me, that feels a little long, Matt. And I'd say, I agree. Emotionally, that's going to be tough to sit through. But the thing is that going back to the Friday before that Tuesday, that is too fast. I'll explain why. Kind of sequencing things here. Friday is too fast. The next business day after that is Monday. Do we want to put them in a position of rush? Do we want to create pressure on them and all the rest of it? Because what's really going to change at this house here between Monday and Tuesday?
Yeah.
Monday and Tuesday are not exactly hot days in the marketplace where it really changes one day. So do you want to, again, is that the hill you want to die on?
Yeah.
Right? Where you want to push this from Tuesday to Monday? We want to make this one of the talking points in the negotiation, or can we just focus on getting a good price?
Yeah.
And I'm being a bit, my tone here is not very cooperative. That's not how the conversation goes with the client. But the net result is, hey, let's put our focus on the price here, and this is what's going to help us out.
I think it's really important as agents that we help our clients keep their eyes on the price. Really focus on the right fights and the right things that are important, and not get distracted. Because like Jeremy said, your agent should be the one who's not emotional. It's not your home. It's not your investment. You should be the voice of sanity who can say, okay, these are the really important things we need to focus on that aren't good enough for you to accept. These are kind of things and give the other party a win over something that you don't really care about. That really helps in a negotiation to be able to be like, oh, okay, you want us to replace, the fan in the bathroom. How much is that going to cost, Jared, to replace a fan in the bathroom?
There's many different kinds of ways of doing it, but from 100, if you're doing it yourself, $100.
Yeah. If you can get some of the things you really care about for $100, that's probably worthwhile,
Yeah. So we've talked about the core strategies around price when negotiating in this market. Yep. Right. We've talked about conditions and how to look at that. We talked a little bit about dates. So, we want to get into that a little bit more. And the other items that people might discuss could be the deposit, which you don't want to be a big conversation, but can we help the buyer and the seller understand what the expectations are for deposit right now?
Expect to put 5% down. Keeps people happy. Usually you can have a conversation around it. My people's money's tied up in their house, which is going to be closing soon enough.
Again, so story totally matters. If there's a reason and an explanation.
Have the conversation.
And just to be clear, in case anybody either hasn't bought or sold real estate or isn't quite sure, deposit is the essentially good faith money that gets put into trust after subject removal, and then it becomes part of the people's down payment. And yeah, like Jer said,
not always 5%, but
not always, but that I would say that's industry standard.
That's sort of the standard expectation.
If one of you guys writes on one of my listings and you write like a 4% or 3%, we're gonna have a conversation around it, and I'll relay that information to my seller, and then they'll decide whether they're comfortable with that or not. But
yeah, the strange thing was when I got a counteroffer this past weekend, where arbitrarily, without explanation, I got a counteroffer where the deposit was around 8%.
Like they raised your deposit?
They raised our deposit.
That's someone that's been burned before.
I always, whenever it's
a good point.
stuff like that too,
past experience,
as an agent, like I would never counter your deposit without calling you first. I mean, like, hey Matt, just so you know, my guys are a little upset about the deposit. They got burnt, like Jer said.
Yeah, good example, Jeremy.
Can your guys do more? If not, can you tell me why it's low?
Yeah.
And save us all the back and forth with the signatures and the initials on these changes that we can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, communication is huge.
That's a pet peeve thing about texts are nice and easy for a lot of things, but negotiating a house.
As soon as things get hard, stop texting.
Stop texting.
Yeah.
Like, a good text in a negotiation. Do these dates work for your seller?
Do you got a second to chat?
Yes.
That's where you use a text.
Yeah.
Not, our counter is this much.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be perceived the wrong way, interpreted the wrong way 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something and how it's going to impact the negotiation from a separate perception of buyer and seller, which is the new rules. I think we talked about this in past episodes, that a seller has to have disclosure in writing with every counteroffer. And I feel like sellers and the listing realtors get frustrated doing that paperwork the more steps there are in the negotiation. Can you leverage that as a buyer?
I don't think so. I mean that. Yeah, I think on agents, and this isn't really negotiating. It's the only reason the seller gets annoyed with that is because the agent is annoyed. Like if it's just one more paper they have to sign as part of the pile of paper they're already signing, it's no big deal. But as agents, it is annoying that we have this extra step that doesn't really make any sense.
And I'll tell you this, my personal experience on the side representing the seller is when that counteroffer comes in, sometimes you're on the road or you're doing it, and you can do it from your phone or from a tablet or something reasonably easily to scratch out the price on the offer, put in a new price, put a space in for electronic initials, and send it off. This document with the commission is you then have to go and actually do the math. You have to take the percentages.
It slows it down.
And get it. And then the pressure is on because you have to make sure your math is correct because you are individually now doing that math on the side of the road where you pulled over in a parking lot. And now you're feeling that. And why should I be feeling the pressure about getting the commission right? Because really what I want my focus on, to be on, is the negotiation. And I'm confident in my math. I don't want to make people seem like I'm scared of doing math.
All the numbers.
But it is to me a bit of a distraction. And I wonder how many agents, after they've done it 5 times in a negotiation, if you keep chipping away.
Yeah. And the sellers don't want to be clouded with these paperwork, like calculating, and all they want to deal is with the offer. Why are you giving me another piece of paper? What is this? Your commission's changing? What's going on?
I've had buyer's agents say to me, like, hey Matt, I'll save you from having to do the next one. Just get this accepted. And I'm like, oh, I see what you're trying to do. No, I will do the paperwork.
Yeah.
We'll take all the time we need.
I think in a couple of months, it's just going to be standard operating procedure as far as that goes. It's annoying. It's an extra step. And it's the one thing they introduced that I don't think sellers actually appreciate. Like I've never, a lot of the other new forms, I've had people be like, oh, that really made it clear. That was good. Like
all the new agency disclosures that are formatted in different ways depending on your situation.
Explain exactly what my duties are and how our relationship works. Most people, when I go through with it, are like, oh, thank you. That was great. Most times when I present the seller with this, with the commission disclosure, the comment is, I know how much I'm paying you. We talked about this when I hired you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but let's not make that a distraction in the negotiation then either.
Yeah.
So if I'm going through visually here in the contract, we've got price, we've got deposit. This is the thing that I didn't mention. So we did dates, we did conditions. One condition we didn't talk about, we talked about kind of the usual stuff, is erroneous items like an oil tank inspection. How firm can you be on that? Or these are the two that I'm curious about scratching out. If a buyer presents an offer that says an oil tank inspection, you don't really have much opportunity as a seller to cross that out. And
I've had sellers cross it out, and the negotiation always goes horribly from there.
Yeah.
Because immediately the buyer's like, what?
Why are you saying that you will not take any responsibility for a tank you assure me is not there?
Yeah, totally.
Where all the ground is covered. Just tell me it's not there. Okay, and then the other one on the strata side is when we put in a provision that says, in the event that a special levy, an additional charge to the owner is proposed between now and when I become the owner, the seller will take responsibility for that cost. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but that's roughly what it says.
That's interesting because you chose our office's wording.
Yes.
Which is not the standard wording.
Standard is if it's been approved.
Right, and our office gets sneaky, and I like it. It says proposed instead of approved, which, if you're representing the buyer, protects them a bit more, because even if it gets... I've only had maybe 3 agents ever cross that out. I think most don't even notice that the wording is...
I've had it been happening more recently, and then so my counter claim to them is, and when I get it in an offer as a listing agent, I say, guys, we can't cross this out, for the same reason why I counter back with the question as a buyer's agent is, if you cross it out, what is it that you know?
Do you, sorry, just to clarify, are they crossing out the whole clause, or are they crossing out the word proposed and changing it to approved?
The whole thing.
Okay. I agree with you totally.
What are you hiding?
I've had, yes, totally. What I was talking about is I've had agents, just a few, cross out proposed and write in approved. And I feel like I've got no ground to stand on if they do that. I'm like, if they're like, we'd appreciate if you use the standard clause.
I don't mind fighting back on that, because I'll say, well, if you're doing that, can you explain to me why? Are you aware of a proposed levy that could be coming up? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, so then why are we crossing this out? Because I feel like I do want this responsibility to fall on the seller in case it happens. Well, nothing's coming, Matt. I don't see anything in the documents. Neither do I. But your client, as a occupant of that strata, might hear things and know things that people talk about, that there could be something that's coming up that's proposed. So now I feel you know something I don't, and this is something I need in.
So, and this is interesting, actually. When I'm representing the seller, I cross out proposed and I put in approved. And if people fight me back on it, my argument is usually, we have lawyer-approved clauses that we can use. This is not one of them. And I have never had an agent not. And I mean, really, I'm not going to kill a deal over it. But it's an interesting point, because depending on whose side you're on, right?
All I see in you crossing that out is that you know something I don't, because the only reason why it benefits you to cross it off is if you think something's coming. If you're so confident that nothing's coming,
interesting,
leave it in there.
See, I frame it the other way to the agent. I frame it as, I don't even know if this will hold up.
Yeah, I get the argument that they, anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the listeners get what we're talking about here. Yeah. Anything to add to that, Jared, before I move on to my next one?
It just feels familiar, that's all. Sorry.
What?
I think it just happened recently.
I did.
So. Did you guys go through this?
I went through it in negotiation this summer, yeah.
Who were you, seller or buyer?
Buyer.
Okay.
And he crossed it off.
Yeah.
And it went through
the whole clause.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, if you cross that whole clause out, that's a huge...
And he just tried to say, like, oh, no, there's nothing. But I said, well, again, same...
If there's nothing, it's not a problem. Same with oil tank.
Yeah.
I get you have the certificate, so why do you care?
Yeah.
There's a certificate.
Yeah. Okay, last one. Included items.
Oh, I feel like Matt has more to say about this than...
I don't want to get into the real gross part of it, but just as a general statement to listeners, like when we're negotiating, you say, I love that dining set, I want you to include the dining set. Should you make that part of the negotiation, or maybe should you just save it until you finalize the deal and have a conversation after the deal is done and say, hey, I love your dining set. You're interested in selling it?
I prefer to keep it completely separate from the deal.
100%.
I hate being a furniture salesman.
Yeah.
And it just gets so messy with expectations, and
it's another thing. It's another thing just to complicate things. They think that's $1,000 dinette or whatever. Like,
it really muddies the water when we got much bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, totally. You're negotiating. Well, like we've been talking about, you're negotiating $500,000 or more, and you want to argue over a $200 furniture set. Like, eye on the price. Yeah.
Now, exception to the rule might be you're there and the agent who has very clear instructions from the seller says, hey, these furniture items here, they really don't want to move them.
Totally
so if you want to take them, write them in. hey, easy peasy.
And I'm all for, after the deal, sending something in and saying, hey, I really love your furniture. If you're interested, I would be happy to buy some of it. But, you know, making it part of the negotiation just seems like, what's the word, nitpicky?
Yeah, it complicates things very unnecessarily.
Yeah, I asked for a dog once.
Okay. I don't think that's your story for story time.
No, it's
so
not.
Let's maybe table that one for another time.
We'll tell that story another day.
Okay, let's do a couple interesting negotiating stories.
Sure.
And put a pin in this one.
It's story time with Jer.
Great story. Compelling and rich.
It's not always my story?
No, it's not always your story. What if Matt has an awesome story to tell?
Well, he can tell it to me or write it down and I will paraphrase.
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
We've been discussing all the ways that we should negotiate. And Jared, I think this was your idea of, instead of doing one story for story time, just kind of going around the table here and telling some of our absolute nightmare negotiations. I don't know, Matt, do you want to go first?
I will go first. Okay. This is one that I tell often when the scenario presents itself.
Yeah.
And I think, Geoff, this might relate a lot to you, and you may completely disagree with me.
Ooh, okay.
But it depends on the scenario, and maybe given the circumstances, you would agree. But it's when you get, typically it's more than one offer. It doesn't have to be, but usually more than one offer, but maybe there's only two or three. So you're not overwhelmed with opportunity. And this story specifically, we got two offers. And this is a number of years ago. This was before the smoking hot market, but we did get multiples. One offer was considerably higher than the other. So there was really only one worth considering.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what the price was. It was probably near to the asking price, maybe a little under, a little over. But the seller thought, I think I can get a little more.
Okay.
So the seller asked me, they said, do you think we could get a little more? Well, my advice is not to. You don't want to upset things. You don't know what happens when you go back asking for more. If you do, you run a little bit of risk, but there's risk and reward. You get a little more money, whatever it may be. So we kind of weighed those options, and it was sort of a large family and a few different voices, and they said, we want to take our chances here and go for this.
And the one offer was way better than
considerably better, yeah. Now, this isn't a time when we're talking maybe $500,000, so it's maybe a $30,000 difference.
Sure, that's way better.
That's right. So it's obvious, right? Like the other one wasn't coming up $30,000 to make it them even, let alone exceeding the other. So they make the decision, and the agent was outside with the client at the time of presentation. But because we had this big family and all of this debate, it took us quite a while. And the agent called us and said, hey, just so you know, they're going through like family stuff right now where, you know, cousins in the hospital at Royal Columbian delivering a baby. Right? Yeah. Like, it's not bad news, but it's that, hey, our mind is elsewhere.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, my guys have left, but I said, can you come up a little bit? This is what we're looking for. We had the conversation. He said, yes, we can. Talk to my guys. They're over at Royal Columbian. I'll go over there and get the initials. Job done. So now I'm waiting an hour and a half, 2 hours to get this sort of confirmation that it's happened. I'm calling him, not answering, finally answers. What's going on? Can't get a hold of my people. They won't answer. They won't communicate with me. You know, they said I could come straight over and get the initials. Now they're not answering. I've called the other guy, told him we're focusing on the other one. This is where we're focusing our attention. He's furious.
Yeah.
For not really for good reason, because his price wasn't very good.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't have an accepted offer. And he goes, well, what's going on and all the rest of it. So the day goes by, the night comes to an end, and we have to wait till the next day.
Yeah.
You know, the offer technically, according to the acceptance date, has expired. And, you know, we're still willing to just get something signed up and done, even if it was the original price they offered at this point, right? Because everything's fallen apart. And call the agent, and he just says they're not answering. They're not interested. This isn't happening. Call back the other agent. He's got an ego.
Yeah.
If I tell you his name later, you'll know.
It's funny how most horrible nightmare stories of negotiations, ego gets involved somewhere.
And check in on him. He says, no way, not interested. You said no yesterday, game over.
Huh.
It took me 3 months to sell that house after that.
You thought I would disagree, which is interesting.
Sorry, just the sending it back part. I know often you like to go back and ask for more.
Oh, I will go back. But the conversation I always have before going back is, we can lose it when this happens. Are you okay with it? Like what we talked about. I can negotiate much better if you're willing to walk away. And that works for the seller as well as the buyer.
Right.
If you've got one that's so clearly the winner, and it's going to be awful for you to lose that, then no, don't go back.
So they went for, I don't even know how much more money they asked for, but it was, enough that they gave us a verbal, we're going to sign off on that.
Yeah.
And walked away. And then worst case scenario is both parties walk, right? First party just ghosted.
Yeah.
Second party feels insulted, says not interested in talking to you. And then we had to market it for months and months and months. And in the end sold it for, I couldn't tell you the exact price, but
probably less.
Probably more than 30,000 less.
Yeah.
Those days on market can really change things.
Yeah. Big, really, really affected you. So that's sort of a scenario there where, you get, you push the limit.
3 offers to 3 months on the market.
And people can get insulted. And you'd say, well, you had an offer yesterday. Why aren't you interested today?
Yeah.
And ego gets in the way. They said, nope, you broke up with me once. I'm not coming back.
Was it an average house?
It was in bad shape.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it was unappealing.
Right. So I guess it was just maybe greed. I don't know if you can say that, or they really needed the money, but
it was just business.
Yeah.
Right. And like I said, a few family members, you get a few more voices, right? And maybe you're splitting the pie. Every dollar seems to mean a little more. I don't know, but it's an example that I don't tell in nearly as much detail. But when people ask me, do you think I should go back and ask for more? I say worst case scenario is we have nothing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not even just we go back to one of these other offers. They might say, take a hike. We feel insulted.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't, for whatever reason, maybe just because I haven't negotiated and we haven't done negotiations in so long, it's hard to think of a particular instance. But I definitely can remember times where people do walk away and you lose them. And whether you're going back for more money or...
for sure.
No, we're going to slow play this. Are you sure that's what you want to do? Okay, that's fine. If I'm working with the buyer, okay, let's make them wait. We're going to make them wait because they're looking at this based on some, a Craigslist ad maybe they bought something off of and it paid off for them. But in this instance, those rules didn't quite apply. And no, we already have an offer. Next, when it does come time to let's make them sweat it, it's gone now. So I hope that wasn't like the one for you. Hopefully maybe it was a split level or something that there's a dime a dozen in that neighborhood, but keep that in mind. I guess that would be like my takeaway without having some epic story.
Well, and it's kind of like Coach Keith talked about in our episode where we had him on.
Episode 9, Any Given Sunday.
There we go. When he talked about Scarf, one of the reasons people get upset is fairness. And in a negotiation, things can turn really bad really quickly if people feel like they aren't being treated fairly. And that's not the same as playing hardball. But I imagine that those people that you brought up wrote an offer, were told to write the best offer that they could possibly do, maybe even had a feeling that they were the best, because if they were $30,000 over, they probably wrote a really good offer and probably felt like it was pretty unfair when they got countered.
Yeah, possibly. I can tell you their offer was very close to asking. It's just that the other offer was well below.
Yeah.
But either way, they had some confidence. I think there a lot of things went wrong, a bit of a perfect storm.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. One thing I think is really important that we haven't talked about in any of our points too is in a negotiation. I think it's really important to deliver on what you say you're going to deliver. My story involved we were showing a place, and I know I raged about this to Matt at the time. I don't know if I've told Jeremy about it before, but we were showing a home over on Belmont Street, and my grandpa owned in Belmont. It is a building that has historically had some issues. There are some things that have been put off being dealt with in there, but my people were very interested, and the listing agent, while we were in there, they said, we know about some of the history, but we don't have everything. We'd like to read the minutes before we make a decision. And the agent said, no problem. I've got everything. Get Geoff to email me if you want them, and I'll send them all over.
Sorry, so let's just, for our audience sake here, your clients were at an open house.
No,
sorry,
you were there. I was showing. I'm there. And the listing agent
you're
is
there. The clients are there. The listing agent is there, and the listing agent says to you or to your clients when they ask,
"Yeah,
documents are available. I'll send them to Geoff."
Yes.
Okay.
So I email them after the showing. My guys really like it. They're a little worried about some of the stuff in the building. Would love to see the minutes. And I get nothing back. And the next day, I'm like, hey, like, we're ready to go. I even know what most of the stuff, the hurdles are, but my clients would like to see it in writing, and we'd like to talk about it, and then I'm going to write you an offer. And I get an email back, discussed with my sellers, they have instructed me not to send you the minutes. Minutes only upon accepted offer. Now, what do you think happens when I tell my buyers this?
Oh, yeah.
They're moving on.
They lose their mind. And it probably would have been okay if he hadn't have told them he'd send them. Mm-hmm. But
because that's normal protocol, like regular, typical market.
What is the benefit to withholding them?
I have no idea. And I think this is
they wanted them invested with an accepted offer.
I think this is an agent who probably wasn't handling his clients very well. I think his clients, because he kept telling me, look, this is what can I do? This is what they've instructed me. And I'm like, well, you need to explain to them that they're going to get an offer and you've got this. They're going to get the minutes anyway, but you need to tell them you told the buyer that they could have them. And now you're telling them, and it seems sketchy like crazy.
He who giveth taketh away.
Yeah. And then this went so wrong on all sorts of levels. And then he hits me with, and this is where my ego gets in the way.
No, don't hit Geoff.
Yeah, he hits me with, well, I don't know how long you've been in the business.
Oh, that one.
But I'm used to giving minutes after accepted offers.
What do you know, newbie Geoff?
And that's probably when I went into Matt's office in rage. Because it totally gets me.
I don't think there's anything that burns an agent under the age of 35 more than hearing, I don't know how long you've been doing this.
Well, and pro tip to agents who are older and using this as an attack method, your V number dictates how long you've been in the business. And for those who don't know, every agent has a what's called a V number. It's how we log into MLS.
Like a student number.
Yeah. And they're in chronological order.
Yeah.
And it was Matt who pointed it out. He's like, well, let's look this jerk up. And I mean, he'd only been in the business a couple years.
But he had more gray hair.
Oh, yeah. He was an older guy and just, I'm sure, felt like he could get a one-up on me. Maybe assumed that I was... I started when I was very young, so maybe he thought that I wasn't, and he also was out of area, so he's probably never seen me before. Anyway,
I'm fuming over that now. That is
all the rage from then is building up. We did get the deal together, and then a stupid little thing came up in inspection. And my clients couldn't wait to collapse the deal.
Oh, of course. Like we said from the start.
Yeah. Power shift.
Bring it all back, Geoff. Yeah. Oh, man. He's been scripting this since the whole episode started. He's like, I'm closing this.
So there's a couple of things going on there. Knowing your opponent.
Oh, yeah.
Don't say stupid things like that. Like,
never let it get personal and really deliver, right? Like if you're going to say something, as soon as you take it away, like as soon as trust is lost, it's a really hard thing to recover from.
Yeah, the whole process is extremely psychological, right? And you start messing with people on either side, and you have got such a mess to deal with. And we can sometimes clean it up and get the deal done.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're at final point time, but one thing we didn't quite mention is I see it on business cards every once in a while, and there's a type of agent, this negotiating expert. And I hope people have learned from listening to this. And we are all skilled negotiators, but it's not something we brag about. Usually those people's approach is a bullish approach, and they don't know the nuances and all the little intricacies of the psychological aspects of it, that actually we get the same result without pissing people off. And usually it goes a lot smoother and a better result.
Yeah.
Would you agree? I would think. Yep.
I totally agree.
Definitely. You always get a better outcome. You just frame it as a win-win.
Okay, so I think that's probably going to do it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that and got a lot out of it. If you have any questions or feedback, you can email us at feedback@morealestateshow.com. And if you enjoyed this and you feel like supporting the show, a 5-star review on iTunes really helps us get out to more people. Should we plug what we're trying to do for?
I think so.
Okay, so
let them know. Tell the people.
So
trying.
In the works for the next few episodes, we have elections coming up in
the municipal elections.
Yeah, not the midterm elections in the States are coming up. And we are trying to get some of the candidates to come on the show and specifically talk about their stances on housing.
Yeah, New West candidates, but also we're going to get some explanations because I don't know what a trustee does, which information that'll be helpful for people in all different ridings.
Yeah, it'll be New West focused, but I think it'll be good information for anybody listening in the Lower Mainland because we're going to try and get into well, like you said, what their actual roles are.
What's a school trustee? I don't know.
What can they do?
What can a counselor actually impact about housing? Because people seem to keep wanting to go to their city and say, do something about housing.
Who do I yell at?
Yeah, so you have ideas, but what is actually within their authority to do? I'm curious to learn about that. So I'm hoping they come on.
Now,
we've invited some people. We're working on it.
If you know, was that what you're going to say?
That's totally what I was going to say. If by chance you know someone who is going to be running for council, please let them know we're trying to get them. We've put out some opening attempts and we're working on it. Or if you are someone who is running for council, we would love to talk to you. So hopefully that's what we're going to be dealing with next episode. I think that's going to do it for today. If you want to get a hold of Matt or Jeremy, you can find them at thenewwestguys.com. And you can find me, Geoff McLennan, at realestatenewwest.com.
You get that right?
I got it right. I've only screwed it up once.
Okay. Syntax important.
Syntax is, the order of operations matters.
Especially for websites.
Yeah.
Particularly.
Yeah. Well, you know why I got it wrong? We used to have both. We used to be Real Estate New West and New West Real Estate.
Oh.
I don't know how we lost the one that we lost.
Carol.
Oh, no. Jeremy.
Matt was smart enough to get and New West guys because apparently
some
we were looking at
don't write in
analytics
the.
the other day and we were getting a bunch of redirects from newwestguys.com. So
oh, really?
Minus the.
Nice.
So important.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
So away on holiday, which was really nice.
On a boat.
Been a long time.
Were you on a boat, or did I just?
Yeah, we got a boat. Jane's parents bought a place on Bowen that we've been looking at. We've been really slow playing that one because I think we wrote an offer like maybe 2 years ago on it.
The same one?
Yeah, it's a tough property because it's off grid boat access. Nice place, but not without its challenges. I think they've been through a few different realtors. Years on the market. That would have been a funny negotiating thing I could have talked about because we had a no, this is the price, take it or leave it, or we're going to take it off the market and raise the price. It's
Wait, the seller told you?
Yeah. So that was a first for me. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I was like, really? Because it's not working. What's going on right now is not working.
You're doing this wrong.
Maybe it's because our price isn't high enough.
We just haven't asked enough.
Yeah.
That
I saw The Secret, and I realized that I need to ask the universe for more.
So they pulled it together.
So we got this family place that we're all going to get a chance to enjoy, which is awesome.
When are Matt and I coming over?
Anytime.
After Jeremy learns how to get me there safely.
So yeah, so they bought it. The kids bought the boat, which is a lot cheaper than not cheap.
Like you and Jane and Jane's brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but he doesn't live here, so it's kind of
good deal
use
for you.
and enjoyment is in our favor. But who knows? Boats really hard to drive. Not the boating that most people know of, having a drink, sitting back, someone driving the boat. Hey, you want to come drive the boat? Sure. I'll walk up, sit at the helm, stand, whatever.
Yeah.
drive in a straight line. Well, this is fun. Boating's easy.
Yeah.
Much different when you're the skipper person that's actually driving it, and parking is challenging. It doesn't break. So
I feel like that's not the right word.
Parking, mooring? No, park. We have a little spot, like a parking space. Luckily, the boat beside us is this butterscotchy, hopefully they don't listen, thing. And we bought some bumpers, and they're called fenders, actually. I still call them bumpers. They hang over the sides.
I still call them bumpers, too. I didn't know that wasn't
right. Apparently they're called fenders.
Oh, did you color match them to the boats around you? So if you give them a nice good...
they don't rub off, but butternut buttercup or whatever beside us. It's just pretty tight, this little parking space and a river. But anyways, boating hard, boating expensive.
Did you name your boat?
No, it's too little.
Every boat needs a name.
It feels too little to have a name. It's got a number like BCS 1347.
How about D Nice?
with a apostrophe?
However you want to spell it.
There's all sorts of puns that we kind of went through. This'll-do.
Oh, that's an inside joke. That's the name of my dad's boat.
What did we have? A boat time. I've seen a lot of boats too with puns on them but they didn't even. They could have spelt it. They totally could have gone with the pun, but they didn't. Like I actually did see it's about time, but
they
should have been a boat time.
A boat time.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it is actually just about time.
Yeah, maybe. And then the other thing, and I guess most of you guys knew this, but cabins that are on the water but have stairs. A lot of stairs makes everything a little more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm going to have huge, whatever muscles make you move upstairs, they're going to be quite defined.
Is that calves?
Calves? Gluteus maximus? Matt, you should know.
Depends on how you extend.
I'm not lunging up the stairs, and I'm not taking more than one at a time. Often I'm taking a couple and then stopping.
Catch your breath.
But catch your breath.
Yeah.
You start getting like jello-y kind of legs.
Yeah, it depends on how you plant your feet. You plant your feet's different. Get your heels on there instead of your toes.
So I should actually isolate different muscle groups as I'm going up the stairs carrying 20 liters of water, just to kind of work the different ones. I wouldn't get as tired.
It might work.
If you drink the water while you're walking up, it gets easier.
You just hold it over your head empty.
Yeah.
Lots of exciting times.
So those
ahead.
are fun. Yeah, lots of fun facts. We're learning about composting toilets.
That sounds awful.
Learning about mice, where they like to go and what they eat. What do they know? Do they know things? The ocean's cold, a little bit colder. Matt knew that. Nice thing about having a dock, though, is when you jump in, there's no like Matt's cabin. You got to walk into this lake and it's warm. But you still kind of your body's like, this is cold. Why are you going more deeper? This is still cold. But whereas in jumping off a dock in the ocean, it's just instantly cold, and then it just neutralizes.
There's no turning back.
No. What else? Orcas. Saw some orcas. Saw J50.
What's J50?
Is a baby orca. That's its name, I guess.
That's its science name.
That's the science name for baby orcas?
No, I just found out this morning.
That
orca.
specific orca has a name.
Yeah, they name all the orcas.
Yeah, but they don't actually give them fun pun names. They're just
J50.
That's its street name. They were talking about it because it was sick.
Oh, okay.
Then they had to give it. They found out that it was hanging out right around where we were, and then they shot antibiotics into it.
Really?
Yeah. They found it. They know. I think they know all of them. Like they can tell because of their fin.
I'm pretty sure they learned how to translate the whale calls. Ever since Free Willy, they kind of had that dialed in.
So the parents named it J50.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Anyways, that was a compelling story. Do you guys have any other questions about anything else you want to know about that?
I just want to know when we're going on the boat.
Anytime. We can go this afternoon if you like.